Let me be brutally honest about something that frustrates me about the self-help industry and therapy culture. This is what they all refuse to tell you. The avoidant partner who vanished from your life absolutely owes you a real explanation for why they left. And their refusal to provide one is exactly why their traumas never heal. Let me be absolutely clear. If you spend months or years being intimate and close with a person, sharing feelings, emotions, and your bodies, and after all that, you think you can just stand up and leave without any proper explanation, that's not just called avoidant attachment. That's also called being a selfish idiot. This is what most avoidants simply don't get. It's not just about you. You can't just tell someone you love them and then one day decide to quit. You can't even quit your job without handing in a 2-week notice first. And yet, avoidants think leaving an intimate relationship instantly is fine. You're not a bad partner for not accepting the avoidant's vague explanation of why they left and demanding proper closure. So yes, I do think the avoidant owes you. When someone allows you to love them, invests time in building intimacy with you, and benefits from your emotional labor and care, they create a moral debt that doesn't disappear simply because they decide they no longer want the relationship. This debt isn't about money or material things. It's about the human obligation to treat people with dignity and respect, especially those who have been vulnerable and loving with you. The cowardice behind their silence. The real reason avoidants refuse to provide genuine explanations for leaving isn't because they're protecting themselves or because explanations wouldn't help. It's because they're cowards who would rather inflict confusion and pain on you than face the discomfort of an honest conversation about their own emotional limitations and failures as partners. Their silence serves their need to avoid accountability for the pain they've caused and the promises they've broken. If they had to articulate why they're leaving, they would be forced to confront how their behavior throughout the relationship created problems, how their emotional unavailability damaged your connection, and how their inability to reciprocate your investment led to the relationship's failure. This self-reflection feels threatening and uncomfortable, so they choose to protect themselves by leaving you confused and hurt. The refusal to explain also serves their need to maintain their self-image as someone who doesn't hurt people intentionally. If they provided honest explanations, they would have to acknowledge that their departure is causing you significant pain and that their behavior throughout the relationship contributed to this outcome. It's easier for them to disappear quietly and tell themselves that you'll be better off without them than to face the reality of the damage they're inflicting. Their silence allows them to avoid confronting their own emotional limitations and relationship failures. A genuine explanation would require them to acknowledge that they're incapable of providing what you need and deserve in a relationship, that their attachment issues prevented them from being the partner you deserved, and that their leaving represents their failure rather than relationship incompatibility. This level of honesty about their own limitations feels unbearable, so they choose to leave you carrying the burden of confusion instead. The avoidance of explanation also protects them from having to witness the full impact of their decision on your emotional well-being. If they had to sit with you while you process their departure, see your tears, answer your questions, and confront the pain their decision creates, they would be forced to feel guilt and responsibility that they prefer to avoid. It's easier to disappear and let you suffer alone than to take responsibility for the suffering they're causing. Their silence serves their need to maintain control over the narrative of your relationship and its ending. If they provide genuine explanations, you might challenge their reasoning, point out their contradictions, or hold them accountable for their role in the relationship's problems. By refusing to explain, they maintain power over the story and avoid having their version of events questioned or examined. The refusal to explain also allows them to keep you as a backup option for future reconnection. If they provided complete closure through honest explanation, it would be much harder to return later when they miss what you provided. Their silence keeps the door open for phantom returns by maintaining ambiguity about their feelings and motivations. Most fundamentally, their silence represents emotional cowardice, the inability to handle difficult conversations, confront their own limitations, or take responsibility for their impact on others. They would rather inflict the pain of abandonment and confusion on you than experience the discomfort of honest, accountable communication about their decision. The implicit contract of relationships. The time you spent together, the memories you created, the plans you made, and the dreams you shared weren't just pleasant diversions for them to enjoy without consequence. These experiences created a relationship context that comes with responsibilities and obligations. Their acceptance of your vulnerability throughout the relationship created an implicit contract of emotional safety and consideration. Every time you opened up to them, shared your fears and hopes, or allowed them to see your authentic self, you were extending trust that they chose to accept. This trust comes with the obligation to handle your heart and feelings with appropriate care, even when ending the relationship. The practical ways you adjusted your life to accommodate the relationship, changing your schedule, modifying your living situation, making compromises about social activities, or adjusting your future plans represent tangible sacrifices you made based on their participation in building something together. These adjustments have real-world implications that deserve acknowledgement and explanation when the relationship ends. Most importantly, they allowed you to love them. Love isn't just a feeling, it's an action, an investment, and a gift that requires courage and vulnerability to extend. When someone accepts your love, they accept responsibility for treating that gift with appropriate respect and consideration. Walking away from love without explanation is like accepting an expensive gift and then discarding it without acknowledgement. It's fundamentally disrespectful and morally bankrupt. What you actually deserve to know. You deserve to know the real reasons they're leaving, not sanitize half-truths or generic statements about incompatibility. You deserve honesty about their emotional limitations, their inability to meet your needs, and their unwillingness to do the work that healthy relationships require. You deserve acknowledgement of what you brought to the relationship and recognition of how their departure will impact you. You deserve an honest accounting of their feelings throughout the relationship when they started checking out emotionally, what triggered their withdrawal, and why they couldn't communicate their struggles rather than simply disappearing. You deserve to know whether their expressions of love and commitment were genuine in the moment or calculated performances designed to maintain your investment. You deserve an explanation of their decision-making process, how long they've been considering leaving, what alternatives they considered, and why they chose abandonment over communication and relationship work. You deserve to hear them articulate what you brought to their life, how you supported them, and what they'll miss about your presence. You deserve validation that the relationship had value and meaning, even if it's ending. You deserve honesty about their capacity for relationships in general, whether they believe they can provide what any partner needs, or whether their issues extend beyond your specific connection. You deserve to know whether they plan to work on their emotional availability, or whether they intend to continue patterns that make healthy partnership impossible. You deserve transparency about their future intentions, whether they plan to date other people immediately, whether they believe they're capable of treating future partners better, and whether they've learned anything from your relationship that will improve their approach to love and commitment. You deserve an apology for the pain their departure causes, an acknowledgement that they're choosing to prioritize their own comfort over your emotional well-being. You deserve recognition that their decision to leave without warning or explanation represents a betrayal of the trust and vulnerability you extended throughout the relationship. Most importantly, you deserve respect for your intelligence and emotional maturity. You deserve to be treated like an adult who can handle difficult truths rather than a child who needs to be protected from reality. You deserve the dignity of honest communication rather than the insult of being abandoned without explanation. The psychological violence of unexplained abandonment. Unexplained abandonment triggers the same neurological responses as physical abandonment and creates attachment wounds that can take years to heal. The confusion created by unexplained departure forces your brain into hyperactive analysis mode, constantly trying to solve the puzzle of what went wrong and why they left. This mental preoccupation prevents you from processing the loss naturally and moving forward with your healing. The lack of closure creates what psychologists call ambiguous loss, grief without clear resolution that prevents natural healing processes from occurring. When you don't understand why someone left, your mind cannot properly categorize the experience, making it impossible to learn from it and apply those lessons to future relationships. You're left with trauma without meaning. Unexplained abandonment also creates profound self-doubt about your perceptions, intuition, and ability to assess relationship dynamics. If someone could seem loving and committed one day and disappear the next without warning, how can you trust your ability to read other people's intentions? This doubt undermines your confidence in future relationships and makes emotional vulnerability feel dangerous. The silence also forces you to fill in the blanks with your own worst fears and insecurities. Without their explanation, you're left to assume that their departure confirms your deepest fears about being unlovable, too much, or fundamentally flawed. These self-attacks are often far more damaging than whatever honest explanation they might have provided. The abandonment creates hypervigilance in future relationships as you become constantly alert for signs that someone else might disappear without warning. This hypervigilance prevents you from relaxing into natural intimacy and creates anxiety that undermines your ability to build healthy connections. You become haunted by the possibility of repeated abandonment. The lack of explanation also prevents you from understanding what relationship behaviors to modify or maintain in the future. If you don't know what went wrong, you can't make informed decisions about how to approach future partnerships. You're left to guess what might have caused their departure, potentially changing healthy behaviors or maintaining problematic ones based on incorrect assumptions. Most severely, unexplained abandonment can create complex trauma responses, including intrusive thoughts about the relationship, emotional numbness, hypervigilance about relationship security, and difficulty trusting your own perceptions and feelings. These responses can persist for years and significantly impact your quality of life and relationship capacity. Their excuses debunked. Let's address the common excuses avoidants use to justify their refusal to provide genuine explanations, because every single one of them is self-serving, designed to protect their comfort while dismissing your legitimate needs. Explanations one step change anything. This excuse suggests that explanations are only valuable if they can reverse the breakup, completely missing the point that explanations serve important psychological functions for processing loss, understanding relationship dynamics, and learning for future connections. Explanations aren't about changing outcomes. They're about treating people with basic human decency and respect. It would just hurt you more. This paternalistic excuse assumes they know what's better for your emotional well-being than you do, conveniently ignoring that unexplained abandonment creates far more psychological damage than honest communication ever could. They're not protecting you from pain. They're protecting themselves from discomfort while inflicting maximum confusion and self-doubt. You should focus on moving forward, not looking backward. This dismissive response invalidates your legitimate need to understand what happened before you can process and move forward. It's like telling someone to get over a death without having a funeral or to heal from surgery without understanding what operation was performed. Understanding is a prerequisite for healthy processing, not an obstacle to it. Hey, I'm not good at explaining my feelings. This excuse treats emotional communication like an innate talent rather than a basic adult skill that can be developed and practiced. If they can hold jobs, maintain friendships, and navigate other adult responsibilities, they can certainly manage to communicate about relationship decisions that affect other people. This is laziness, not inability. It sits better for both of us to have a clean break. This assumes that clean breaks require abandonment without explanation, when the opposite is true. Clean breaks happen when both parties understand what occurred and can process the ending with clarity. Unexplained departures create messy, unresolved endings that linger for years. You are better off without me. This seemingly self-deprecating statement is actually narcissistic manipulation that makes their abandonment about your benefit rather than their choice. It's designed to make you feel grateful for being discarded rather than angry about being disrespected. It's emotional gaslighting disguised as humility. We just want different things. This generic non-explanation provides no useful information about what specifically went wrong or what they actually want instead. It's a meaningless platitude designed to end conversation rather than provide genuine insight into their decision-making process. This excuse implies that they're making a mature choice about personal growth, when in reality they're usually just avoiding the work that relationships require. If personal growth were genuinely their priority, they would be capable of having mature conversations about their decision rather than disappearing without explanation. Every one of these excuses prioritizes their comfort over your legitimate need for understanding and closure. They sift all variations of, I don't want to deal with the discomfort of honest communication, so I'm going to make my avoidance your problem. The truth they don't want to tell you. Here's what most avoidants would tell you if they were capable of complete honesty about why they left. They're emotional cowards who would rather hurt you than face their own limitations. And they left because maintaining the relationship would require them to grow beyond their current emotional capacity. I left because being in a relationship with you forced me to confront my own emotional limitations and fear of vulnerability. Your love and emotional availability triggered my attachment fears, and instead of working on these issues or communicating about my struggles, I chose to protect myself by leaving. I'm not actually ready for the kind of partnership you want and deserve, but I'd rather blame incompatibility than acknowledge my own emotional immaturity. Or perhaps, I left because you started expecting reciprocal emotional investment, and I realized I'm not capable of providing that without feeling trapped and suffocated. I enjoyed the benefits of your love and support, but when you needed the same from me, I panicked and chose to preserve my comfort rather than step up to meet your needs. I'm leaving because I'm selfish and emotionally limited, not because there's anything wrong with you. Another version might be, I left because I never intended for this relationship to become as serious as it did, and when I realized you were expecting real partnership and commitment, I decided to escape rather than be honest about my intentions and capacity. I led you on by accepting your love and investment without being transparent about my limitations, and now I'm leaving rather than taking responsibility for the false hopes I created. Sometimes the truth is, I left because I met someone else who seems more exciting and doesn't know about my emotional limitations yet. I'd rather start fresh with someone new than do the hard work of addressing the problems in our relationship. Or the brutally honest version, I left because I never loved you the way you love me, and I finally got tired of pretending. I enjoyed the attention, support, and companionship you provided, but I never felt the deep connection that you did. Instead of being honest about this mismatch from the beginning, I strung you along until it became too uncomfortable to maintain the facade. The common thread in all these honest explanations is that they left because of their own limitations, fears, and emotional immaturity, not because of anything fundamentally wrong with you or the relationship. They would rather inflict the pain of confusion and abandonment on you than face the discomfort of acknowledging their own shortcomings and taking responsibility for their impact on your life. Why you need to stop making excuses for them. The most important truth you need to accept is that you've probably been making excuses for their inexcusable behavior, and this excuse making is preventing you from recognizing that you deserved better treatment and have every right to be angry about how they handled their departure. Stop telling yourself that they're not good with words or struggle with emotional expression. These are adult life skills, not special talents. They manage to communicate enough to get you into the relationship. They can certainly manage to communicate about ending it. Their silence is a choice, not an inability. Stop rationalizing their abandonment as self-care or protecting their mental health. Taking care of yourself doesn't require destroying other people. Healthy self-care involves honest communication and considerate treatment of people who have been good to you. Their abandonment is selfishness, not self-preservation. Stop accepting their fear of confrontation as a valid excuse for disappearing. Fear of difficult conversations is not a legitimate reason to inflict psychological damage on someone who loved you. Adult relationships require difficult conversations, and people who can't handle them shouldn't be in relationships until they develop this basic capacity. Stop believing that you're better off not knowing their reasons. You're not a child who needs to be protected from difficult truths. You're an adult who deserves honest communication and has the right to understand what happened in your own relationship. Their decision to withhold explanation is infantilizing and disrespectful. Stop making their emotional limitations your problem to accommodate and understand. Their inability to handle relationship challenges doesn't become your responsibility to manage or excuse. They chose to enter a relationship despite knowing their limitations, and they are responsible for handling their departure with appropriate consideration for your well-being. Stop telling yourself that closure comes from within when what you actually need is basic information about what happened. While healing ultimately happens internally, understanding provides the foundation for that healing. You can't properly process an experience you don't understand, and you shouldn't have to manufacture your own explanations for someone else's behavior. Stop accepting the narrative that wanting explanation makes you needy or unable to let go. Wanting to understand major life events is normal and healthy. Your need for explanation is evidence of your emotional intelligence and investment in learning from relationship experiences, not weakness or dysfunction. Most importantly, stop protecting them from the consequences of their cruel behavior by excusing it, minimizing it, or taking responsibility for their choices. Their decision to leave without explanation was cruel, cowardly, and disrespectful. They owe you an apology, an explanation, and an acknowledgement of the pain they've caused. The fact that you're probably not going to get these things doesn't mean you don't deserve them. The explanation you shall never get, and why that sets their loss. The sad reality is that you're probably never going to get the honest explanation you deserve, because most avoidants would rather live with the guilt of their cowardice than face the discomfort of honest communication. This says everything about their character and nothing about your worth or the legitimacy of your need for understanding. Their refusal to provide explanation reveals them to be fundamentally selfish people who prioritize their own comfort over basic human decency. They would rather leave someone they claim to care about in confusion and pain than experience the temporary discomfort of a difficult conversation. This is not the behavior of good people, regardless of their attachment style or personal struggles. Their inability to handle honest communication about relationship endings also reveals that they were never suitable partners for genuine, intimate relationships. If someone can't discuss why a relationship isn't working, they certainly can't do the ongoing communication work that healthy partnerships require. Their silence is actually evidence that ending the relationship was the right choice, not because you're incompatible, but because they're incapable of real partnership. The explanation you'll never get would probably just be more self-serving anyway. Even if they provided reasons, they would likely be filtered through their need to avoid responsibility and maintain their self-image as reasonable people making difficult but necessary choices. You would probably get elaborate justifications rather than honest acknowledgement of their limitations and failures. Their refusal to explain also means they'll never have to confront their own patterns and grow from this experience. By avoiding the discomfort of honest self-reflection and accountability, they ensure that they'll repeat these same patterns with future partners. Their silence doesn't just hurt you, it prevents their own emotional development and almost guarantees they'll inflict similar damage on other people. Most importantly, their refusal to provide explanation reveals that they never really knew you or understood what you deserved. Someone who truly appreciated your worth, your love, and your investment in the relationship would never leave you with questions and confusion, moving forward without the explanation you deserve. Use their inexcusable treatment of you as motivation to raise your standards for how you allow people to treat you. Anyone who cannot handle basic communication about relationship challenges doesn't deserve access to your love, time, or energy. Their cruelty should make you more selective, not more accommodating. Recognize that your anger about their behavior is completely valid and healthy. You're not bitter, unable to let go, or stuck in the past because you're angry about being treated poorly. Your anger is appropriate and protective. It's your psyche's way of recognizing that you deserved better and shouldn't accept similar treatment in the future. Stop making excuses for people who won't make explanations for their own behavior. Your capacity for understanding and forgiveness should be reserved for people who demonstrate accountability, remorse, and genuine care for your well-being. Don't waste these precious qualities on people who treat them as weaknesses to exploit. Most importantly, let their failure to provide explanation serve as evidence that you're capable of love that they never deserved. Your need for understanding and closure demonstrates emotional maturity and investment in relationship growth that they obviously lack. Their loss of your love is a tragedy for them, even if they're too emotionally limited to recognize it. You deserved an explanation. You deserved better treatment. And you deserve a future partner who recognizes your worth enough to communicate honestly about difficult topics. Their silence is their confession that they were never good enough for you.